All right, let's dive straight into this explainer. Right now, we're confronting a massive paradox playing out in the high-stakes world of clinical stage biotech. We're looking at Ernexa Therapeutics, and this is a company standing squarely at the intersection of cutting-edge oncological science and the brutal ticking clock of financial survival.
I mean, it really boils down to this. Can a genuine cancer-fighting breakthrough actually survive the harsh financial realities of the stock market? That question is the beating heart of our analysis today. We've got a company balancing some truly incredible oncology data against a very unforgiving financial reality. So let's explore the groundbreaking science first before we dig into their bank account.
To understand their potential, we first have to grasp their core technology. We're talking about IMSCs, or induced mesenchymal stem cells. Think of these as highly specialized synthetic delivery vehicles. They're engineered from induced pluripotent stem cells and are designed to specifically home in on and infiltrate a tumor's microenvironment. Once they get there, they deliver immune-activating cytokines exactly where they're needed most. And the best part? It's a scalable, off-the-shelf therapy. That means there's absolutely no need for that time-consuming, patient-specific cell harvesting we see with other treatments. Now, what makes this technology so fascinating is how Ernexa's lead candidate, ERNA-101, is actually designed to work. Standard solid tumors, like platinum-resistant ovarian cancer, are notoriously cold. That basically means the patient's immune system just ignores them. ERNA-101 aims to deliver potent pro-inflammatory factors directly to that tumor, effectively converting it from a cold, ignored mass into a hot, actively targeted zone for the immune system to attack. It's a total game changer if it works.
And the preclinical data brilliantly illustrates this scientific promise. In models for aggressive ovarian cancer, Ernexa combined ERNA-101 with standard PD-1 blockade therapy. It didn't just slow the cancer down, which is what you might expect. The combination demonstrated highly durable anti-tumor activity, driving high rates of complete tumor clearance. Just imagine the impact here. 100% long-term survival in these preclinical models. That is exactly the kind of data that makes the medical world stop and pay very close attention. So here's the crucial pivot. Ernexa is now shifting from a preclinical organization into a true clinical stage biotechnology company. They're trying to take this amazing science out of the laboratory and actually put it into human patients. But making that leap is incredibly complex, and it requires executing a very strict, heavily regulated roadmap. This triggers a rapid-fire sequence of clinical catalysts over the next 12 to 18 months. By Q2 2026, they're finalizing ERNA-101 manufacturing. In Q3, they plan to submit their investigational new drug or IND application to the FDA. Then, by Q4 2026, they aim to initiate that critical first-in-human phase 1 study for platinum-resistant ovarian cancer. And all of this leads up to the massive milestone, an initial clinical data readout in the first half of 2027. But as any biotech investor knows, executing a phase 1 clinical trial is extraordinarily expensive. It takes an army of researchers, massive regulatory compliance, specialized manufacturing, the whole shebang. And this forces us to execute a dramatic pivot of our own and look directly at Ernexa's balance sheet. What is the actual financial cost of hitting these milestones?
Let's look at their cash runway. As of March 31, 2026, Ernexa's cash balance sits at $9.177 million. Now, to be fair, this was recently bolstered by a $10.5 million public offering they completed back in February, issuing common stock and pre-funded warrants. So they do have some cash on hand to push forward. However, contrast that $9.1 million reserve against their current burn rate. Their total net loss for just the first quarter of 2026 stood at a staggering $5.5 million. I mean, do the math. That is a massive cash burn for a 3-month period when your total reserves are sitting at just over $9 million. When we break down those operating expenses, you can see exactly where the cash is going. Look at the heavy cash burn of research and development at $1.9 million and general and administrative costs at $1.6 million. But notice that third line item, a really painful $2 million non-cash impairment of goodwill from a past 2018 acquisition. Even if we exclude that non-cash charge, the raw operational burn required just to push this science forward is intense. To survive this kind of burn rate, Ernexa had to aggressively secure some runway. They went ahead and filed a $50 million universal shelf registration. But there is a major catch here. Because their public float is under $75 million, they fall under the SEC's baby shelf rules.
That limits their stock sales to just 1/3 of that public float. So while they did implement an at-the-market or ATM funding program as a lifeline, their immediate access to capital is heavily capped at just $9.2 million.
And as if navigating FDA trials and super tight cash flow wasn't enough, Ernexa found itself fighting a completely secondary battle for its very survival on the stock exchange. Beyond just raising cash, they were up against the ticking clock of Nasdaq's strict $1 minimum bid price rule. To avoid getting immediately delisted for trading under $1, they had to pull a pretty drastic maneuver. On May 4, 2026, they executed a 1-for-25 reverse stock split. This artificially inflated the share price by combining every 25 outstanding shares into one single consolidated share.
The tension of this situation is just palpable. After receiving a delisting notice back in March and holding a really tense hearing in April, they were finally granted a conditional extension on May 5th, but it came with strict terms. They had to maintain a bid price over $1 for 10 consecutive business days by May 15th. And the penalty for slipping up? Immediate delisting if any rules are broken before September 2026. They are literally operating under a mandatory 1-year monitoring period, living completely on a knife's edge.
Yet, despite all this intense financial friction, the leadership remains entirely focused on the science. CEO Sanjeev Luther recently reminded investors that crossing the threshold into clinical stage validation, actually getting that first-in-human study off the ground, could be the major inflection point that unlocks significant potential value.
So ultimately, you have to look at all the pieces on the board here and ask yourself, can this management team navigate the complex financial engineering required to keep the lights on long enough for their breakthroughs to reach the patients who need them most? Or will a potential cure be snuffed out simply because the money ran dry? It's the ultimate high-wire act of science versus survival, and the next 12 months are absolutely going to decide Ernexa's fate. Let's see how this plays out.